Hi, I'm Jen from Tea Leaves and Tweed, and welcome to another installation of isolation baking. Today I'm making chocolate cake, but not just any chocolate cake. I'm making what's known as a depression cake or a poor man's cake, which supposedly comes from the Great Depression, and it doesn't use any butter, eggs, milk, any of the things that might have been rationed during the war, that might have been hard to come by during the Great Depression, and it uses things that are found in the pantry. So everything is shelf stable, seems great for us these days, and it has the added benefit of being completely vegan. So let's bake. Now I'm basing this off of a recipe I found online, but with a few of my own little changes. For one, the original recipe calls for cocoa powder. However, I don't have any cocoa powder in my pantry, but I do have unsweetened chocolate because I use that to make my morning cocoa. So we're gonna just start right in with 1.5 cups of flour. This is just regular old white all-purpose flour. And then 1 cup of sugar. A teaspoon of baking soda. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna just give that a little mix together to kind of distribute the sugar and the flour and the baking soda around. And then the recipe calls for 1/3 cup of oil. Now normally, since I'm using melted chocolate instead of cocoa powder, I would reduce the oil, but this is a very low oil cake. So I'm gonna use all the oil because I think it needs all the fat it can get. And I'm just using safflower oil, that's what I keep on hand to cook. It calls for 1/4 cup of coffee, and this is just the coffee that my husband hasn't drunk this morning. And it calls for 1 cup of water. And I have 40 grams, about 1.5 ounces of melted unsweetened chocolate. And then it calls for 1 teaspoon of vinegar. The original recipe calls for white vinegar, but we don't have any white vinegar right now, so I guess I have to use apple cider vinegar. I guess I could have also used red wine vinegar, but that seems silly. Teaspoon of vinegar. And it calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla, but again, I'm out of vanilla. It's kind of the theme of the game, so I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of hazelnut extract. And then you just kind of stir this together. So now I have a loaf pan that I have prepared with some parchment paper and oil. I'm just going to pour the batter into the loaf pan. And now this is going to bake in a preheated 350-degree oven for about 45 minutes to an hour, possibly even longer. These kind of very moist cakes tend to take a long time to bake. So the way I like to test them is with a probe thermometer, and I let it bake until it reaches 195 degrees Fahrenheit inside at least. So I'm gonna pop this in the oven, and then I'll meet you back here when we have cake. So here we have our finished cake. I've dusted it with a little bit of powdered sugar to make it pretty. So I'm gonna cut myself a slice. It's very soft. I've let it cool for a bit, but it's not completely cool. Oh, it smells so chocolatey. Oh, this smells so good. very moist. I know people hate that word, but the bottom is a little sticky. Ooh, it's really tasty. And I've made myself some Prince of Wales tea to enjoy with my little afternoon snack. It's just good. It doesn't have the butter flavor that a lot of cakes have, but it has a pretty good chocolate flavor. It probably would be better with cocoa powder. It's a nice texture. It's a really lovely texture. Nice sweet flavor. I think it would be really good with some dark brown sugar in place of some of the sugar. But it's not heavy. It's very like rich and moist, pardon me. And it's lovely with a cup of tea. But it doesn't feel super heavy. It doesn't feel like I'm gonna feel sick after eating this piece of cake. And I don't feel like I'm ruining my dinner. So this was a vegan chocolate loaf cake based on a depression cake recipe for our isolation baking this week. Hopefully you have everything in your pantry to make this week, so let me know how it goes. Thank you for joining me for this baking video, and I hope I see you again sometime. Bye.